Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartiya, and we are here at Linode headquarters in Philadelphia. And today we have with us Hilary Wilmoth, your Director of Product Marketing at Akamai Linode. First of all, it's great to have you on the show in person.
I am excited to be here. We've spoken many times, but never in person, so this is great.
Right, and it's a great opportunity to just walk us through some of the new announcement, new products, new services that you folks kind of announced since the Linode and Akamai acquisition happened.
Right, it's been a continued schedule of releases from our product development teams for us to really focus on new products and services or expanding the footprint of existing services, and then working on customer experience improvements as well. So that can range from our managed database service, which was released back in March and is doing very well. We've seen increased adoption month over month for that product, and we're really pleased with the introduction over the last 6 months. And then moving to more customer enablement, or maybe not customer enablement, more like community enablement improvements, like alternative payment methods, so that we can support all developers globally with the choice of payments by adding Google Pay and PayPal to the sign-up flow, just allowing more developers to have access to simple, affordable, and accessible cloud computing services from the Akamai Linode cloud, which has been a big step forward as well. I don't want to keep running through a list, but there's been great improvements as well to our marketplace application, which is deployed via our Cloud Manager platform, which has really focused on two things. One, adding more apps, of course. We've seen that number continue to grow, and it actually forced some user experience improvements as well. So in addition to having access to tools like Kali Linux or HashiCorp's Nomad or Vault tools, you can now it's even easier for customers and users of the platform to deploy marketplace apps by adding features like filtering and search functionality, moving up the deployment bars within the discovery process so that you can quickly deploy a one-click app on Linode.
As you said, there's a long list, and we'll talk about it.
It's a long list.
But I want to go back to some of the announcement, like managed databases. Sure. I also want to understand what are the driver behind. You talked about alternative payments. I fully understand to cater to the global audience. But talk about the driver behind announcing managed databases.
Managed databases is something that came from customer need and desire, like much of the Linode product portfolio has come to be, has been through true need. So we saw a gap in the products and services that we were providing to our customers. And one of the things that we kind of learned with Kubernetes is that as customers approach these things, we also want to make sure that we're making it as easy as possible. Everything that we are developing is really with the customer in mind. So having a managed service and allowing to abstract away some of the complexity of managing your own database, some of the admin work, some of the DevOps work that comes along with doing those things, or having a DBA administrator actually on your staff, we realized that not every Linode customer or user has access to those things. So managed service makes sense in the simplicity way that we tend to think of our products and services. And then also started with the most popular databases, so SQL and non-SQL, really seeing growth of mainly MySQL and Postgres.
Since you talked about complexity of Kubernetes, the complexity around Kubernetes is so much that you have to, and it's not a small space, it's a massive, security, observability, service mesh. It's a very, very complicated space. Where I talk to a lot of companies and they are feeling this pain. That brings us to the old days of managing those services where you don't have to worry. That's the whole point of managed services. So talk a bit about what you're seeing in the space. And when we look at a lot of offerings that I feel that what Linode is doing and a lot of other alternative cloud providers are doing is that to make it easy for customers so that, hey, you don't have to worry about that. We know about that. We'll take care of that. Yeah, so talk about that.
Exactly. I think that we think about that two ways. Is one, absolutely through education. We know that the developer community that Linode has been a part of for so long, you want to get your hands dirty. You want to be maybe deploying some of these things yourself, managing them yourself, really understanding the build and the structure of your architecture or of your infrastructure. And while that is great, you hit a certain point where you get impacted by some of the daily monitoring or maintenance requests or version control or updates that need to be done for your for your Kubernetes cluster or for your database cluster. And those are two of the most needy applications or components within your stack. So we, as you said, we just want to make it easier. We take that to heart in every deployment, but as we look at things that people are excited to deploy, need within their architecture design, because if you're creating an application, it most likely is translating or needs an input for some kind of data. So you need to be able to manage that and monitor it and care for it. And the care and feeding of those things takes a lot of time. Managed services just make sense for us to be able to approach the market with, for all developers. It's where you are in your personal development process of your development skills, and then the sophistication of your application or your workload on Linode. So, just as much as we say it's awesome for us to have these managed services, we also say we've also given you all of these enablement tools to support it or deploy your own database or your own Kubernetes clusters yourself. It's just an option that makes it more accessible for the community.
When you're talking about making it easier for developers, when we look at Linode, your user base, customer base spans from individuals who are also kind of enthusiasts, or they want to run their own website, all the way to big organizations who are running massive operation, leveraging a lot of things that you offer. When you do interact with this kind of the spectrum of user base, how does this kind of make managed services kind of cater to, it doesn't matter who they are?
We are very solution oriented and want to make sure that someone can see themselves and see their workload on Linode. And I'll keep talking about the educational resources that we have either through documentation or through reference architectures that our solutions engineering team is working on that are for public use, and then also to enable existing customers within Linode and within the Akamai community as well, to make sure that you are building something that can scale with you and gets you to the point that you need for your application to be successful on the cloud. I think that as managed services step in into that kind of role along with those users and those developer communities, really, we're not creating managed databases so that customers or developers can't do these things. It's to help you continue to accelerate your workload without needing to possibly bring on additional resources.
The way I look at it, it doesn't really matter whether you're a starting developer or top tier. If you're top tier, it frees resources for you. If you're a small developer, you don't have to worry about resources. So it's creating a kind of level playing field.
There's something in there in terms of if a developer is approaching Linode for any Kubernetes or database service, you have to do an evaluation, right? You need to figure out which approach or deployment style or managed service makes the most sense for your workload, your application, et cetera. And that can come in a few different ways, either looking at specs of availability and saying like, oh, I can do this, I can deploy this on my own. Or I found a document that says, I can do this, I can deploy this on my own. Or you've looked at that and said, oh, I need some help. What services are available to me? And it could be a variety of things. It could be the actual managed service, which is spec'd out and also has documentation and tons of educational resources around it. Or it could be, I really can't do this by myself. what other managed services do you have for me? And then it's more engagements with professional services or solutions engineering teams to actually get that leg up to educate you or to help you solution together to create an architecture that makes the most sense. So at the end of the day, it is a level playing field. It is the access and freedom of adding these tools into your stack or into your infrastructure design without the limitation of resources necessarily or cost or feeling like you aren't ready for that, whether it's Kubernetes or a database.
Now let's switch gears and go back to the marketplace because
Sure.
you folks also added support for Kali Linux, and Kali Linux, it's known within its own, it's one of the most reputable, Linux distributions out there. So talk about, once again, the driver for the support, why you added it, and who it is meant for.
I think that security is just always a hot topic, and it's something that developers really resonate towards in terms of securing their applications, securing particularly cloud applications, of course, and then making sure that there are easy ways for them to continue to strengthen that security of their environments in the cloud. And Kali Linux was connected to us through our solutions engineering team. They had worked on a customer build that used Kali and realized that we could actually enable this for all Linode customers and enable it within the marketplace so that it could be deployed either in Cloud Manager as part of your distribution selection for deploying a CPU, or adding it to your resources as part of a marketplace app that you could click to deploy. One of the most positive aspects of adding Kali Linux to the Linode cloud platform was that we're actually one of the first providers to add it directly into the deployment process. So people can select the distro of Kali Linux to just add the security layer at the base, which has been really appealing. We've seen a lot of increase in deployments using Kali, and then also interest on the marketplace app. So I think this has just been something that was an opportunistic or encouraging next step for the community to see within marketplace as we've examined different tooling to add to your Linode infrastructure. It's been things like monitoring, it has been security, it's been monitoring tools, IAC application tools. Really, we're trying to run the gamut so that you can find what you need within the Linode marketplace as that continues to grow through partners, really.
I also wanted to talk to you a bit about after the acquisition. How did that impact Linode's offering? Because now you have access to much bigger, larger market, much more resources. So to talk about that.
Since the acquisition, there's been a lot of conversations about how we can improve the Linode platform and improve our products and services based on the reach and scope of Akamai within the industry. And that has, been nothing but, or is showing nothing but potential. I think we are starting to see some of that potential come to life as we look at defining the product roadmap for at least the near term and a bit of long-term future. And we are incredibly appreciative that Akamai has incorporated Linode's philosophy of supporting the developer, all developers really at any stage of their career, and making sure that the products and services are scalable, affordable, reachable, and that those resources can be deployed quickly and easily. So as we kind of look at what comes next, we're excited about expanding our global footprint and really being able to provide additional data centers across the globe, which can also lead into more distributed centers. There's this idea of kind of going to the harder to reach locations around the world to make cloud more accessible. So as Akamai affords us the ability to do that with the emphasis on compute resources or cloud computing resources, and the emphasis on the accessibility to developers to not only deploy, but to deploy, secure, and deliver their services on the cloud.
If you look at the roadmap, of Linode, under, the umbrella of Akamai, what are the things that are in the pipeline, which you can share at this moment? What kind of company are we looking at?
I think we are continuing to look at obviously, like I mentioned, the global availability and being able to create those additional data centers. We are excited about future product development as we continue to improve our network with the power of Akamai behind us / with us in that environment, and then being able to really focus on the integration of our products so that someone really can deploy cloud to edge computing, incorporate CDN delivery, work with security tools that Akamai is world famous for at this point, and be able to create this new world of cloud that previously Linode customers didn't really have access to without trying to cobble it together and be able to have it all in one space. So, the roadmap includes not just the increase in data centers and availability, but also getting into additional customer experience improvements as those integrations kind of come together, and you can see more tooling in both spaces and still maintaining the self-serve model that developers enjoy of being able to deploy on their own, and up to products like a VPC that, Linode has a VLAN product currently available, and it's very appropriate and well used by many of our developer community. But as we begin to scale and consider ourselves in the business of supporting all developers, we need to also make sure that our product set is scaling as well, so that it can be appropriate for an individual developer up to an enterprise developer. It's an amazing opportunity for Linode to be able to scale and grow with the support and power of Akamai behind this organization, and what we're able and will be able to deliver to the developer community will be a very strong showing for cloud, and I don't think people will be disappointed.
Excellent. Hilary, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talk about, the kind of, once again, how you're making things easier for developers and sharing the roadmap. And I would love to talk to you again soon, but I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.